Right now, somewhere in your house, a light switch is within arm's reach. You barely register it exists. But for almost the entire history of your species, that switch was the one piece of technology nobody had. When the sun dropped below the horizon, the world simply ended for the day. You'd assume that meant early humans just shut down, ate whatever was left, curled up, and waited for the sun. But the real answer is far stranger than that. For your ancestors, night wasn't downtime. Night was when the group became something different than it was during the day. So what actually happened once the light disappeared? Start with the obvious problem. Night was dangerous. Predators had better night vision than humans. Every unfamiliar sound could be something with teeth. Logic says a smart species would go quiet, go still, and wait it out. Early humans did the opposite. They built a fire, sat close together, and got louder. That reaction only makes sense once you understand what fire actually did for early human groups. It wasn't just light and warmth. According to archaeologist Dr. Richard Wrangham, whose research focuses on the role of fire in human evolution, controlled fire may have reshaped human biology itself, allowing for cooked food, more available calories, and crucially, a new kind of shared space. A fire pulls people into a circle. It creates a stage. And once humans had a stage, they started performing on it. Anthropologist Dr. Polly Wiesner studied the Jew/Honzi people of the Kalahari Desert, one of the last populations to live a foraging lifestyle resembling ancient human life in meaningful ways. She recorded conversations across an entire day and found something you wouldn't expect. Daytime talk was mostly practical. Complaints, gossip about resources, disagreements over who did what. But once night fell and the fire was lit, the entire tone of conversation shifted. People told stories. Long, elaborate stories about ancestors, distant relatives, spirits, and events from long before anyone at the fire was born. In her recordings, the vast majority of nighttime conversation was storytelling. During the day, that number was close to zero. Why would an entire category of human behavior only switch on after dark? Because night removed the one thing that dominated the day: obligation. During daylight hours, every moment had a task attached. Hunt, gather, repair a tool, watch a child. Once the sun went down, most of that labor became impossible or too dangerous to continue. The pressure of constant productivity lifted, and for the first time all day, people had nothing they had to be doing. Into that empty space poured story. This wasn't just entertainment, it was survival infrastructure. Before writing existed, a story was the only technology capable of preserving knowledge across generations. Wrap a lesson in character, rhythm, and emotion, repeat it by firelight often enough, and it becomes permanent, passed down without a single written word. The names of the dead, the boundaries of dangerous territory, the consequences of breaking trust with the group. All of it lived in the stories told after dark. Night was the only classroom your ancestors ever had, and nobody called it school. There's a physical piece to this that's easy to overlook. Firelight does something to the human nervous system that sunlight doesn't. Bright daylight keeps the brain alert and task-focused, but the low, flickering orange light of a fire produces a different kind of attention, something closer to a mildly meditative state. Researcher Christopher Lynn, who has studied the psychological effects of watching fire, found that gazing at flickering flame measurably lowers blood pressure and shifts brain activity into a calmer pattern. In other words, firelight wasn't just illumination, it was quietly changing the mental state of everyone sitting around it, making the group more relaxed, more open, more willing to be vulnerable with each other. Now picture that happening every single night, for hundreds of thousands of years, across nearly every human population on Earth. You're not just describing campfire chat anymore. You're describing one of the basic mechanisms that built human culture. Night was also, quietly, when trust got built. Daytime interaction tended to be transactional. Who owes what? Who needs help right now? At night, without those pressures, conversations slowed down and became personal. People joked, laughed at things with zero survival value, asked questions that weren't about resources at all. That seemingly pointless laughter did something important. Evolutionary researchers have long pointed to shared laughter as a kind of social signal, a way of telling everyone present, "I trust you enough to be foolish in front of you." Groups capable of relaxing together like this, consistently, night after night, likely built tighter social bonds than groups who treated every waking hour as pure survival time. The group that could laugh together in the dark may have simply out-cooperated the group that couldn't. Which brings you to the strangest part of this entire picture: how your ancestors actually slept. You probably assume ancient humans slept in one long, unbroken stretch, the same way modern sleep advice tells you to aim for. Historian Roger Ekirch spent years combing through pre-industrial diaries, letters, and court records, and found repeated casual mentions of something called first sleep and second sleep. People went to bed not long after dark, slept for several hours, woke naturally sometime in the middle of the night for an hour or two, and then drifted back into a second stretch of sleep before morning. That waking period wasn't treated as a problem to fix. It was ordinary. Some people used it to pray. Some talked quietly with a partner. Some just lay there, thinking in the dark. Ekirch's research suggests this two-phase pattern may have been the default for most of human history, and only vanished once artificial light stretched the evening later and compressed sleep into one continuous block. If that's accurate, the strange, wide-awake feeling some people get at 3 in the morning isn't necessarily insomnia. It might be an old biological rhythm still quietly firing, in a body that no longer has anywhere for it to go. Night, for most of human history, had structure, activity, and storytelling first, a natural pause somewhere in the middle, and a second stretch of rest after that. 2 parts, with a gap built in between them, and nobody thought that gap was broken. Which raises an uncomfortable comparison to how you spend your own nights now. Your ancestors' darkness was shared, unhurried, lit by something warm that pulled people physically together. Yours is more often solitary, lit by a cold screen, and squeezed into a single forced block of sleep that leaves no room for that natural midnight pause at all. You inherited the biology. You lost the structure that used to make sense of it. Think about what quietly disappeared. The fire that once gathered an entire group down to a single glowing point is now a phone screen held alone under a blanket. The storytelling that once bonded a community is now a feed scrolled through in total silence. The calm, almost meditative state that flickering firelight used to produce is now interrupted by a blue-lit screen doing nearly the opposite, keeping your brain alert exactly when it should be slowing down. And that natural stretch of nighttime wakefulness your ancestors treated as completely unremarkable is the same stretch many people now lie awake in, anxious, certain something is wrong with them. Nothing is wrong with you. You're running very old software on hardware that was never designed to hold a screen. So tonight, when it gets dark, and you reach for that switch without thinking, understand what you're actually skipping past. Not just darkness, an entire evening built by hundreds of thousands of years of humans pulling in close, handing down who they were through story, and trusting the people beside them enough to laugh long after the sun went down. The fire went out a long time ago. The stories moved somewhere else. But the part of you that still wants to gather close, say something honest, and stay up later than you meant to, that part never got the message that the fire went out. It's still waiting for someone to light it.